It's not perfect compared to the one I did a couple of years ago, compared to the Marvin I did a couple of years ago, but I tried something different. I might go with my previous design next time, but I got to include this as well. Hello and welcome, I'm Zombie Kitty, and we haven't really done a Jacksepticeye Ego video in a while. We did one in August, but that was a rewatch. This is on something way more recent, and this is not a video reaction. This is comics! So, the ALTRverse is the comic side of Jacksepticeye's Iris project. So this is the world in which his characters live in, the egos live in. And he has said that he's wanted to do Marvin and Jackie Boy Man correct. Marvin was the magician, Jackie Boy Man is the superhero. And he said that if he had done them as videos, they would have been way too expensive, more than he could afford, and would have taken way too much time. So, comics, I guess, are the correct answer, which does make a lot of sense. So I don't know if this is focusing on the cover at all, but I have bought 2 of the covers, so it is just issue 0 for the moment, just to like start things off. I'm gonna have to refocus occasionally, just to start things off. So this is one of the covers, and then the other one, which I'm not going to be taking out of the packaging just because I want to keep this one as like decoration, because this is also a really nice cover and it has both of the characters on there. So this is the other cover. This will also be the thumbnail as well. So there you go. So how this one works is these are 2 stories in one comic. So the first story is Void Silver, which is Marvin's story. So Void Silver also was in Marvin's last video, I think it was about 2 years ago now. The original title for that one was, I think, Silver Void. So it's an interesting callback to that. And then the second story is the somewhat incredible Jackie Boy Man. So Jackie Boy Man is essentially a superhero who's not very good at being a superhero. So what I'm going to be doing is I have notes that I've written down. So how this is going to work, we're going to go through my overall thoughts on the comic, and then I'm going to go into like my thoughts on the story. I'm not going to go into what the actual stories are per se, but this will potentially have spoilers in it. So yeah, spoiler warning in advance. So what do I think? I really enjoyed it. This isn't going to be the only comic as well. This is going to be an ongoing comic series. So the publishers, Bad Egg Publishing, have already started teasing issue 1. So this is issue 0. And they've already started teasing what issue 1 might be. I think the covers are already revealed, which I'll show you at some point in this video. But yeah, I've really enjoyed it. I think this was the best way that the characters could have been portrayed, because again, especially with Marvin being magic, that's gonna take quite a lot visual effects wise. If Jack would have done that via a video, it would have been way too expensive, would have taken way too much time to do. So I think comic form, and even for Jackie Boy Man being a superhero, comic book form kind of makes a lot of sense, and you can get these things out quicker than you would have done if they had continued being in videos. So Void Silver concerns the Magic Circle, which Marvin is a part of. It's an organisation, like a magician organisation. They have discovered that there is someone dead in the woods, but the body seems to have just a small cut on their arm. No injuries, no internal injuries. They can't figure out how this guy died, and they find the Iris logo on this guy's uniform. Now we know Iris from Anomaly Found Chase Brody and the Watcher video, which was that security camera. So we already know that, okay, something's up. So it does seem that in his universe, Auntie does exist, because that's also what they kind of realise. But what's interesting is that the Magic Circle, there seems to be 2 sort of higher ups, as it were. Marvin is not in the higher up. Marvin seems to be someone who doesn't, it seems like Marvin doesn't really trust the organisation he's a part of, because when they find the body, they take it back to their organisation building, their headquarters, and the two leaders are told, okay, everyone get out, we need to examine the body and sort this out. And Marvin's mask is left deliberately in that room. What's interesting about Marvin's mask as well is that you find out that it can record, it's essentially like a video camera, which is a weird way to describe it, but it can see and record things even if he's not wearing it. So if he leaves it in a room, it will show him later on what it saw, which I think is really, really interesting. It's really cool. But it also explains how Marvin is able to get some exposition himself. So yeah, this is how he finds out the body had just a small injury and that was it, but nothing else. So how did this guy die? And then through this mask, he is able to see like flashbacks of actually how this happened. And what I can theorize and what the implication seems to be is something got out of Iris Laboratories and killed this guy from the inside out. Now, because the image, I'll put pictures up as well to demonstrate what I'm talking about as well. Here's the thing. I theorised right back when Anomaly found Chase Brody came out, is that I think that Iris created Anti either by accident or intentionally for their Watcher security camera. Antimatter technology was mentioned in the Watcher video, so I think that's what happened. The fact that the image that was on screen or is on screen, I haven't edited this yet, but the fact that there's a picture of like a tanker and that's broken and something's gone out is like, okay, so is my theory correct? Like, I feel like you guys created that and then it got too powerful and you don't know how to control it. That's the implication that I'm getting from that. So I already have a few theories as well. I don't understand why the Magic Circle aren't being honest with Marvin and aren't being honest with the other members. They clearly don't, the only thing I can think of is that they clearly don't want this to get out, which I think it's going to. I think it's going to get out. I think it's going to get worse. But yeah, they clearly don't want, they want to keep this hush hush. Because the other thing as well is that when they find the body, the police are also there as well. And the two leaders basically wipe the policeman's memory and said, you didn't see anything, just go back home, you know, memory wiped. So it does seem like they're trying to make people forget about what Iris are doing and what has happened, and they're trying to like keep it on the lowdown essentially and be like, no, it's fine, everything's fine, like trying to keep it hush hush. Which I don't think is going to work. I really don't think it's going to work, but we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I like the portrayal of Marvin and what the comic has done with him. I think it's really, really interesting so far. But the other thing I want to mention as well, and I have put notes for this, is that he has a cat called Higgins. Now I will say I didn't fully understand this one, but from what I can gather, he has like, I couldn't figure it out. Either he has a telepathic connection with the cat, because he does occasionally look at the cat and like is able to get flashbacks or like memories from him. So they clearly have some kind of connection. But the comic starts, the story starts, and you don't know who the narrator is. So it's the one like introducing the story and introducing the world. And then you find out that his cat Higgins is the narrator. So the cat is how we find out about stuff that Marvin is not really supposed to know about yet, or exposition that isn't clear from the story, either through Marvin. So Higgins is the one who tells us. But I think it's really funny that he does that, because occasionally like he'll start saying something to us, and like this is the other thing I like as well, is that just because the project and the Iris stuff is being taken more seriously, the fourth wall breaking has not gone, which I really do appreciate, because that was something I was a bit unsure about. The fourth wall breaking is still there. The cat talks to us as if like being like, we should know more information than what Marvin is being let on, than what Marvin is being told. Which I think is a really funny way to do it, but it's a really interesting way and unique way to do that as well. But I do like occasionally, like, he talks to us and then suddenly Marvin will come over and like pick him up or something, and he's just like, I have to be a cat again. Which is really funny. He's like snapped back to reality. But it is really cute. And Higgins is adorable. It makes a lot of sense as well that obviously Marvin would have a cat because of his cat mask. So it does make a lot of sense that he would have a cat. But what's interesting is that at one point Higgins tells us it's after Marvin has seen what the leaders of the Magic Circle saw with the body, and he's trying to figure out what this all means, and Higgins is saying, you know, he doesn't know the story yet, he doesn't know who he is yet, but he'll find out. It is very clear that Higgins knows the whole story, but can't say anything. It feels a bit like, this is a weird example and comparison, but it feels a bit like the Watcher from Marvel's What If series, in a weird way. It's like, because the Watcher knows the whole story and how it ends, and it seems that Higgins knows the same thing. Like Higgins, because he already mentions, oh, Marvin hasn't met him yet, like he hasn't come here yet, implying that that's Auntie that he's talking about. So he already knows like how that story ends or where that story is going to go, but he's like, I can't tell you that now, and Marvin doesn't know about it yet, so it's not for me to say, which I think is really, really interesting. So I do hope that Higgins remains as the narrator, or like as our narrator for Marvin's story. I really hope that that does stay the case, because I think it's a really interesting way to do it. So what's interesting is that both stories also imply that multiverses exist. So I feel like we kind of guessed this, especially with Dr. Schneepelstein's last video appearance was a few years ago. I don't think I reacted to that video because he was only in it at the end pretty much. But a lot of people sort of theorised that he had discovered time travel. So we're going to move on to Jackie Boy Man's story on that note, because the story starts with a space station and a scientist doing an experiment, and he accidentally causes a rift in multiverses, in all these different worlds, in every world, in every universe. And the rift is what causes Jackie Boy Man's powers. So my theory, from what I've just said, my theory is that the scientist is Dr. Schneepelstein. Whether or not that's correct, we don't know yet, but that's my theory, because I don't think anyone would be as crazy as him to do that. Also, I am keeping things vague because also I want you guys to go and read these as well, so I don't want to reveal like everything. So that is also why I'm being quite vague with some of these details. So if you're wondering like, oh, you don't remember, like, no, that's not the case. I'm just trying to, I guess, be careful with what I say. At the same time, I've already just said, oh, this is how Jackie's powers have come to be. But that's in like the first 2 pages, like you find out. I have a question though. What is Jackie Boy Man's powers? I will say I'm still a bit confused by that one. I don't really know. He mentions that he has super strength. At the moment, that doesn't seem very clear. So, again, at the same time, this is the first issue. So, chances are this will be explored more in future issues, which I do hope it is. I mean, granted, it probably will be. But Jackie Boy Man, I can relate to a lot more. He's a bit of a doofus. He's a lovable doofus, but he's a bit of a doofus. I'm going to show you 2 panels that were my favourite so far, because it's literally me. There's also a moment where he thinks he goes through the city on a pizza delivery. I'll come back to that in a minute as well. And he finds a bunch of robots, what he thinks is attacking a car with someone inside it. So he's firstly like, yay, the robot apocalypse is here. and then starts beating them up, and then realises, oh, it was a tech demo for a multi-million-dollar company. And as the guy or the CEO or whoever is in charge of the demo starts like yelling at him, being like, what have you done? You've broken everything. Jackie goes off into his own world and starts zoning out, which I can completely relate to. It was the most relatable part of the entire thing. I was like, oh, he's me. But yeah, he's a lovable doofus, but he is a bit of a doofus. I think what's interesting is the ending to his story. Because most of what his story is, because he's literally only been in like half a video, if that. So we actually don't know really anything about him. So his story is more exposition and like an introduction to his character, which is what is needed. So I am thankful for that one. But what is interesting about his story is at the end he unsuccessfully does a food, it wasn't a pizza delivery, it's food delivery. But he unsuccessfully does a food delivery and then says, well, at least there's no big bad coming to the town or coming to the city or whatever. I'm like, you sure about that? You sure about that? The other thing as well is that literally in the last page, the story ends with the zombie apocalypse starting. Which I think is also like a side effect of the experiment that we saw at the beginning of his story. So I think what's going to happen is Jackie Boy Man is going to have a bit of a time of it. I think what's going to happen is, because of that experiment, I think weird things are going to start happening in his city that he's going to have to resolve. I think that's where it's going with his story, but it does also imply that with both of their stories, that if multiverses exist and multiple worlds exist, then is that how like Jameson Jackson's going to get there? Is that how, I don't know, Chase is going to find them and that kind of thing? Or is Marvin's world the same world as Chase's? So I am wondering how that's going to go, because I think the one I'm interested in the most, aside from Schneep, is Jameson Jackson. Like, I don't know where that's going to go, and I think actually either, and I've said this before, either he's dealing with time travel or he's going to be in one of these multiverses and somehow find Marvin or Jackie. I think there's more of a chance of him finding Marvin, just because in his second video, the like standee he was in, the booth he was in, had the same symbols that's on Marvin's mask. So I think him and Marvin are going to find each other. But how that will happen, I don't know. So yeah, and the last thing I want to bring up before moving on to the next issue and stuff like that is that I mentioned that he's a food delivery person. Like, Jackie's a food delivery person. He fails multiple times. He gets told like, oh, you know, you're not very good at this. You're not really very good at anything. Like, this is your last chance. This is very clearly influenced by Deadpool and Spider-Man. And I feel like Sean's mentioned a few times that he has quite a lot of influences from Spider-Man. He's a big Spider-Man fan and a big Deadpool fan, so it wouldn't surprise me if those were the influences. But it took me until the food delivery section where I was like, that's Spider-Man 2. That is Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2. So I like that though. It's cool to have these influences and stuff, and it was really nice to be like, oh, I know where that's from. I know what you're referencing. I think it's really cool. But yeah, I'm hoping that Jackie's powers become more prominent and more clearer as the issues go on. I think that because of the multiverse thing, I think that weird things are going to start happening in his city, and I think more bodies are going to start turning up in Marvin's story. I think it's going to get really, really bad with Marvin's story and where that's going. I would also want a more background story for both characters. Like, how did Jackie Boy Man discover he had these powers? What happened with Marvin, like, growing up and that kind of thing? How did he discover he had magic? How did he join the magic circle? So I want to know like these kind of things. So the next issue that's coming out is issue 1, and the covers have already been revealed. So the artwork for issue 0 is Susie Blake. I think the artist for issue 1 is going to be different. So the artwork for issue 1, and I apologise if I mispronounce the name, is going to be done by Megan Hung, or Hang. I apologise if I've mispronounced the name. But I think it's really interesting, like if they're going to have it where each issue has a different art style and a different artist, I think that's really, really cool personally. It gives artists more work essentially, but also I think it'll just be really unique for each issue to have its own art style. But I'll put the cover arts for issue 1 up on here. So I really, really like these covers in particular as well. The Jackie Boy Man one definitely implies that because of the eyeball in the background, I think he's going to start to discover Iris. Maybe the zombie apocalypse is because of Iris, but I think he's going to start to figure out Iris and discover them. And then he'll want to know, okay, what do they do? Are they the reasons for these weird things happening? And that kind of thing. Issue 2 feels like, from what I can gather, it's actually what I kind of want from Marvin's story as well. So it's going to go into his childhood and growing up. And again, how he discovered the magic circle and discovered that he has magic. So I'm really looking forward to them personally. I don't know when they're going to be out, but I know that Bad Egg Publishing have said that they'll be out soon or finished soon. So whether that be this year or next year, I don't know. But I'm happy to patiently wait. I've said this before, like, I think when we reacted to the Chase short, that if Jack only released, like, an ego video, like, a year or every 2 years, but it was, like, really good quality, then I'm happy. And it goes for this as well, is, like, if there's, like, if Jack or Bad Egg Publishing or whatever, like, release an ego project a year or every 2 years, but it's like this quality and really, really good quality and really, really interesting stories, then I'm happy with that. Like, I'm happy to wait because I know that they're going to be good quality and you know, a lot of work has gone into all this. But this was my vlog and my thoughts on the ALTRverse issue 0. So the two stories are Void Silver, which is Marvin's story, and the somewhat incredible Jackie Boy Man, which is Jackie Boy Man's story. I apologise, it's a little bit rambly. I'm never very good with this kind of stuff. I did have notes to go off, which I actually did use. But yeah, I always go a bit rambly anyway. But that's fine. I never want to be fully scripted really anyway, so yeah. But yeah, I will put the Bad Egg Publishing website in the description down below. And thank you all for watching, and I will see you all soon. Bye!